All right, we're started here. Good morning. This is Lex Epimaceno with the Washington Hospitality Association, and I'm joined with Rick Braa of AMP Services, who's the head of our advisory network. I also have Lisa Lineberger with our team here moderating the chat. And today we're talking about the Washington small business grants that was recently announced. And unlike popular belief, it is not first come, first serve. So Rick will go a little bit into that. So if you haven't submitted your application yet, now's the time to do it. And Rick's going to walk you through step by step exactly what to do and how to avoid some certain pitfalls. So with that, I'll hand it off to you, Rick.
Great. All right. Can you see my screen? Yeah? Yep. Great. Awesome. Okay. So the Working Washington, this is the third tranche of funding that's come out. This is CARES funding and needs to be distributed by the end of the year. So there's a pretty good rush to get this money out there. There's a $70 million fund. For those of you that were in line for some other funding through another grant program, the first $20 million is carved off for those people that were already in the queue but didn't receive any funding. The next $50 million is for new applicants. And that's the round 3 grant that we'll be talking about today. It's going to prioritize the most impacted industries, and you know who that is. That's all of us in the restaurant industry that have been impacted by restricted dining, by closures of indoor dining, and significant restrictions on seating. So those most impacted industries are going to be targeted first. And it's very clear that they're really targeting restaurants and food service. So the significant cumulative impacts is another factor that plays in there. So open, close, open, close, open, close. They're taking a look at that. So again, pointing back to restaurants and food service. As Lex led off, this is not a first come, first served program. According to the Small Business Commerce, that all applicants will be evaluated, provided that they're submitted by December 11th. So you get it in after that, good luck, because there's not going to be a lot left. A lot of people have hit the site pretty hard already, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So there's people that have businesses that are over $5 million have asked the question, what do I do with my business? And I say, go ahead and apply. Because if you see that first $20 million that's been carved off, it's for those that were in the queue, and we don't know if there's going to be another tranche behind us. So we'll want to make sure that you're queued up. Even if you've got a business over $5 million and you don't get any of this round, perhaps you could get part of the next. We're not sure yet, but that could play into it. And if there's any money left and you have a business greater than $5 million, that'll also be evaluated. So what can the funds be used for? Grant can cover expenses and only expenses that are incurred due to COVID-19. So this isn't a slush fund. It is to cover expenses that were incurred for COVID-19 that were not covered by another program. And they're very specific about that. And they're going to ask you for some information as you go through the application program. So this is really for expenses that are necessary to continue your business operations. So you'll want to make sure that your expenses really are new from this point forward. If once PPP and if you don't have an EIDL grant or you've used it all already and you've been incurring expenses, I think you're probably safe to use those as long as you didn't use another program or grant for that. You see the third point down there is you can't overlap expenses that are funded by other grants or programs, such as PPP and EIDL, which I was a little bit surprised by. You can use the grant on new expenses. And you've got to keep good records because they can actually come back and audit this up to 6 years later. Based on the demand, I sincerely doubt that there would be an effort to go after some of these funds, but it is a risk. So you'll want to keep great records on what you spend this money for. And it can't be used for government expenses. You can't use government funds to pay for government funds. So you can't use it for taxes, can't use it for fines or penalties or any other governmental expense that you've incurred. So that's important to keep in mind. These are for ongoing expenses that are incurred because of COVID-19.
We do have one question related to
Sure.
this. One of our attendees is asking that saying his application didn't seem to ask for details behind the expenses and is wondering if he missed something.
No, they want to know what the funds are going to be used for, and you can be general in that, but they are not asking for support at this time. They're not asking for financial support, such as where did you get your sales, show me proof of PPP or EIDL. They're not asking for any of that information. That would come up in any kind of an audit that they would do that could occur over the next 6 years. So I don't believe that anything was missed in that regard. So what to have ready for those of you that haven't got your application in yet. The biggest part of this application is the preparation and being ready. The application itself is extremely simple. I talked to somebody yesterday who said that they did theirs in about somewhere around 10 to 13 minutes. And that was actually going back and having to look up a couple of things. So it's a very simple 15, 20-minute application. Not very complicated, a lot of checkboxes, drop downs, and wizard-based type of tools. So simple, streamlined application, shouldn't take you more than 15, 20 minutes. You'll want to make sure that you have a W-9 for your business. If you don't, you're going to want to go to this site that's listed on here. We'll send these slides out so you can get it, but you can just Google a W-9 form and you'll be able to go to the IRS and download that, fill it out if you don't have one already. Oftentimes you will. You're going to want a copy of your current, the person that's responsible for this grant, a copy of Washington State current government ID. So if you live in another state, you've got to have a Washington State current government ID. That was a question that was asked of the administration already, and that was clarified that it must be a current, not expired, current Washington State government ID, such as a driver's license. You've got to know the dollar amount of any grant or program money. And what I'm trying to lay out here are things that have been kind of slipping people up and slowing them down as they go through. So make sure you have these things in hand. So any PPP dollar amount that you received, the EIDL dollar amount, most people received $150,000 plus a $10,000 grant. Don't forget about the $10,000. Any state, county, or city money that you've received, you're going to want to disclose all of that. So just as a side point, make sure that you keep track of this and meet with your accountant, because whatever money you receive, if it's substantial, it could be taxable to you. So you'll want to know the number of employees that were laid off, if you had to lay people off, your gross revenue for 2019 and year-to-date revenue for 2020. And then there's a box that they want you to clearly describe your business and the impact of how government mandates have affected your business. That's very important. The most important thing that the administration has stressed so far is we need all of these applications to be done correctly and completely. We don't want to slow anything down because the time frame for distribution is somewhere around 2 weeks. They really want to get this money out by the 21st. They have to get it out by the 31st, but they really want it out by the 21st. So they want these applications complete and accurate. So they don't want to have to track things down or slow them down. You want to make sure that you know your UBI number and your NAICS code. And if you don't know that, you can go to the DOR website because it's all public information at dor.wa.gov. Click on look up a business, and you can click your tax account, toggle that switch on, and you'll see you'll be asked for your business name. Click on I'm not a robot, and your business name and your information will populate. It's a pretty slick little trick. So that'll show your UBI and your NAICS code. More tips. The site is clunky. The first thing that you'll notice is every time you go to submit, you're going to get hit with a box that says note to submit. They couldn't get rid of that box prior to launching this program. Maybe they have by now. The program's been open for a day and a half or so. But you can safely ignore that note to submit. It pops up every time you hit submit. Simply say okay, you don't have to fill anything in. Edit, save, and submit often. The site doesn't save automatically. Like a lot of sites are built on a database structure that saves every stroke that you put in. This is not. And some of the complaints that I've heard is that it's not saving information, or I'm having to re-input information. So the site's a little clunky because they had to launch it so quickly. So make sure in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, you'll see edit and save. In the lower right-hand corner, you'll see submit. So you're gonna wanna edit, save, and submit often. You can always go back and you can always fill more stuff in until you've submitted your documents. You'll wanna edit, save, and submit often, so you don't have to continue to re-enter information. So I kind of would do that every time I needed to save a chunk of data or go on to the next screen. So you can save and resume later if you don't have time to complete everything at once. But I would really carve out that, maybe up to half an hour to make sure that you've got enough time to adequately complete your wizard. So pretty simple to fill out. So sit down, as long as you have all of that information that I showed you on that last screen, you should be pretty good to go for kind of sailing right through this. So tips from the state: apply during off-peak hours, such as early morning or late evening. I talked to a lot of frustrated people yesterday that said that they just were not getting any responses from the site. So a lot of traffic during the day. So get up early or stay up late when most people aren't working on it, and you'll be able to get your application through pretty quickly. I was able to get on this morning, early in the morning, just single click. So early morning, late evening. Double check your spelling of your email. The department's been very surprised at how many bounce backs they've gotten from people incorrectly spelling their email out. And keep an eye on your inbox and your spam folder, because they may sail through into those spam folders. So sometimes it takes a little bit of time for that email to generate. It could take like a minute or so to see it. If you don't see it after a minute or so, make sure you check your spam, because some have been going in there. If you're applying on behalf of multiple businesses, as many people have several different businesses under different LLCs or different structures, you'll need a separate UBI number and a separate email address for each. So it's kind of a clunky way to do it, but it's the safe way to do it. Email address 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 will make sure that you get those emails quickly. So you can apply for business if it has a separate UBI number, and that's a little bit of a surprise to some of us. So, and if you do apply for more than one grant, the application system is going to require a separate email, as stated in that first sentence there. Don't be afraid to ask for help. One thing that I've been surprised with through all of this is the amount of support that's available. Sometimes it takes a little time to get to them, but the support has really been pretty good overall. So don't be afraid to ask for help. You can email bizgrants@commerce.wa.gov, or you can call 360-725-5003. And I believe that's on the website as well.
One question from the audience.
Sure.
Once you hit submit, can you not edit? Can you still edit?
Yes. Yes. So you're going to go through and you'll set up your account. You likely don't have an account already. So you're going to want to create an account. Then it's going to ask you for some information to fill out so that they can get a hold of you. Then they're going to email you. And this is where the verification link is going to go to your email. So you're going to want to go to your email, click on this, and then you can get right back in. And then it's going to ask you for set up your password on the next screen here. So the first parts of it, I think, is a little bit clunky because it's using email and you're kind of having to keep an eye on things and make sure it doesn't go to spam or junk. The piece that you were asking about is, can I go back and forth? Yes, you can. This tile on the left, this navigation tile, really tracks your progress on where you're at. So you can hit submit, you can go back here and say, oh, I messed up on that. You can go back and click and correct some things and then hit submit again. So this navigation tile shows you where you're at in the process. So once you've submitted, Then they'll talk about payments and any payments that have been made. So very similar to like the EIDL site, where it has a kind of a tracker for you to know where you're at in the progress. So whether it's active or whether it's closed already, whether you've been paid or not, and I'm sure you would know that. So first thing they're going to ask you for is some business background, and this is why we want to have this your gross revenue ready to go, because you can just plug it right in here. 2019 revenue, 2020 revenue. Are you a tribal member? I put no. Otherwise, you're going to have to provide some additional information down towards the end of the application, just a certification that you can do business in Washington. You're going to provide your UBI number and then your NAICS code. And they've said that if you don't have one, you can simply type in there and describe in this box here what kind of business you are. But this box that I've got highlighted here that says briefly describe the business and its products or services, they really want you to fill this out. So tell them that you're a restaurant, tell them that you serve food and beverage or whatever it is, but just briefly describe the business. They don't want empty boxes in this particular area. So then they're going to want you to identify your minority status. Again, this is all wizard based, so very quick to fill out, to breeze through here. Then they're going to ask about business impact. So have you reduced your staffing level? If you say yes, they're going to pop down and ask you how many people you've had to lay off. And then are you worried about your business surviving? A lot of this is going to be used for demographics, because some of the questions are yes, I'm extremely worried, or no, I don't think I'm going to make it. So they want to know where kind of business is on the whole for people that are applying for these grants. And this is kind of demographic information that they're collecting here. So if you were required to close, if you had to reduce your capacity, so those are all pretty easy questions to answer. And then there's a little bit of a double whammy here, because it's asking again, have your business applied through associate economic development organization or any prior grant opportunity. They're going to want you to drop in yes or no there. So do you operate from a commercial location? Very easy wizard-based questions.
Rick,
yeah.
The question on that previous slide there, as a business owner, the first thing that comes to my mind is, you said that this is a demographic page. However, how does this have a significant impact on potential qualification for the grant? Because if I'm looking at this, and if this is a business impact grant, and it says, how worried are you about your business surviving the challenge? Well, to qualify, it would probably be in some of the business's best interest to say that they're mortified and they're, so how much is this information going to translate into the qualification of the eventual gift or grant?
I don't think it will. They were very careful to say all along the way that a lot of these questions, like, did you receive PPP? Do you have any idea that it's not going to disqualify you? So I think they're trying to collect information as to what kind of a dangerous state are they in? Because again, the play is going to be to go back to the federal government and say, hey, look, we put out this grant program. We had 60% of the people say they're extremely worried about going out of business, or 30% are going to go out of business if they don't receive money. So I think that's what it's going to be used for, is just to provide a little bit of data as they go and apply for more funding, or try to make the case nationwide for more federal funds.
So if you've applied for other relief like PPP or the restaurant rally, will they be moved to the back of the line, or are they still?
Nope, it does not disqualify you whatsoever. I suspect they're going to collect all of this information, kind of lump everybody together, and then begin to divvy things up. They did ask about sales, so it's possible that they'll do it based on the percentage of sales that your business represents out of the total pool. So that is possible. We just don't know what's behind the curtain yet. So financial support, this is where they're asking about the PPP. So if you drop in yes, it's going to ask you, list the funding source. Just be honest, because this is all public data. So don't play any games here. List out what you've received and from whom, because it's all public data, and you do not want to get have any kind of fraudulent claims, because when you're asking for public money like this, you've got to be honest. A lot of people have gotten in trouble by fraudulently making things up along the way here. So make sure that you're completely honest, that you list it out. Again, there's going to be, it says right here, by answering yes, it does not make you ineligible as long as the expenses paid or other sources are not used. You're not using the same money as the opening that I brought out. They don't want you to double dip. So they don't want you to take it and you've used your EIDL to build some stuff outside, some pergola or some igloos or whatever you've built outside. They don't want you to take this money and then use it again for the same purposes. They want you to use this for expenses that are separate, that you didn't have money for, government money. Again, no double dipping is what they're after here. Why you need the money? So why is the grant important to your business? That can be as simple as if we need money to pay for our expenses to stay open. This doesn't have to be anything terribly complicated. It's pretty bleak for a lot of people, so it's going to be pretty easy to type out why it's important for your business and make it compelling. And is there anything else you'd like us to know as part of your application? They've stressed that if you had no revenue in 2019, that is not a deal breaker for them, that you can use this box here to say, hey, I wasn't open in 2019 or I had to close in 2019 because of this, that, and the other thing, but I'm reopened. So just, you can use this to provide any additional information that you would like them to know on this application.
So if you're a new business that wasn't open at all in 2019?
Yes, exactly. So for PPP purposes, if you weren't open by March 15th or whatever that deadline was, you weren't able to apply. In this case, you can. So if you open your business this year, you can apply for this grant. I'm not sure how much money you'll get, but you can apply, and they want you to put that in here because you're going to show 0 in that 2019 bucket, which is going to trigger them to take a look at this particular box.
Now, Rick, on this screen, as members and restaurateurs and hoteliers fill this out, how much weight is going to be placed on the language of this? Because it can be very easy for a restaurateur to put 90% of their time into a wonderful narrative that describes their heart-tugging stories of why they need to keep their restaurant open and it's important for the community. How much time versus ROI do our members need to place on this particular screen? Or is it just an informational screen, basically?
It's an informational screen. So as they go through, they want to just make sure that they know why it's important to your business. Again, this is prioritizing restaurants, but there will be potentially other businesses that do qualify here. So they want to know why it's important to your business. So if you can't come up with a compelling reason, like I've had to reduce seating capacity, my sales are off 75%, I'm having a hard time meeting my expenses, they could glaze over you. If they get down to the point of, there's going to be a lot of demand. The first day and a half of this, the department said it was crushing how much volume was going through. That's why I came up with those tips of, hey, do it early in the morning or late at night, because they're getting pounded during the day. It was a little bit surprising they could handle as much volume as they did. Hats off to them. But overall, you're going to want to make sure that you've got some information that's fact-based. I don't think they're going to care much about the drama behind the whole thing. Just put the facts in here and move along. So I wouldn't spend more than 3 to 5 minutes on this. Then you're going to go through and certify. Again, you're basically a lot like the other programs. You're basically saying that you're authorized to get this loan, that you're being honest as you go through. So you just certify, sign electronically. And I put this bullet point down here. Make sure you keep good records of your expenditure of funds. So I'm just reiterating that. I'm a financial guy, so I want to make sure that you are ready for audit if there ever was an audit. So keep good records of your funds that you spend this on.
Rick, you mentioned something about loan. This is a grant, right?
This is a grant. That's right.
This does not need to get paid back.
Does not need to get paid back.
Okay.
I suspect if they found any fraudulent claims that you would need to pay it back. But no, this is a grant. This does not need to be paid back. It's taxpayer money that's being returned to the business community. So when you get down to the documents section, some people have missed these little blue plus marks over here, and it's been a little frustrating for people because they're like, well, how do they're clicking over here trying to figure out how to get this submitted, and the little buttons are over here on the right. So make sure that you're using these buttons. You'd submit your I-9 there, your government ID there. If you're a tribal, you'd want your certification of authorization to do business in Washington there. And then at that point, your application, they may ask you for some bank account information. I'm not sure. Things have changed a little bit over the last day. So they're going to ask you for any additional information that you need. Unlike a lot of other funds, this one's using email a lot. So you're going to want to make sure that you're watching for those emails. If things go to junk, mark them not as junk so they don't go there again, but continue to check if you're not seeing things in your junk mail and your spam. So they are using email for a lot of things here. So make sure your email's right again, because they can't undo a misspelled email and they can't get a hold of you. The things that are on the application that are in black, for example, some of these screens, they'll have like first name, last name. Those are required when they're in black like that. The work phone extension in the gray like that, they are not required to put it in. I would absolutely put my phone in, because I can fat finger my email address and not hear a single thing. So I want them to be able to get a hold of me at any time that they want. And again, make sure you double, triple check that email address. It's really easy to type fast because we're used to doing it. So if they need anything else from you, you'll get an email that will ask you to go back into the site. So save your username, save your password so that you can log back onto the site, both to check the progress of things, but also to fill out whatever else is needed if they need any further clarification. And they really want this funded by 12/30. So the goal is to get it funded by 12/21. They really want everything funded by 12/30. They don't want to run up to 12/31. So they want this money out there as quickly as possible. It's pretty impressive if they can pull this off, because it's a very, very short time frame. And these organizations really aren't built to push money out this quickly to so many people. So be patient as you go through this process. Again, take those early morning, late night if you haven't submitted already.
Are these grant funds taxable?
Yes. So if you're in a taxable position, you're going to want to make sure that you set aside, roughly a third of these proceeds. So let's say that you got $15,000, set aside $5,000 for taxes, if you think you're going to be in a taxable position. If you don't, then that's not going to be necessary. But they are taxable. Just like the PPP expenditures are not going to be deductible. A lot of people are going to be surprised by that. We talked about that in a webinar not too long ago. But you're going to want to make sure you set some tax money aside for any money that you're receiving from any kind of government that's not a loan. Make sure you set money aside to pay those taxes.
What are the grant sizes that people are expecting per business on?
Well, I think a lot of people are expecting the $20,000. And if you do the math, I think it's going to be pretty hard to get to that amount. If there's 10,000 businesses that apply and there's $50 million, you can count on $5,000 if they split it evenly. Now, I don't know that they will split it evenly. Some people are going to get, as I talked to somebody yesterday that said they got a county grant in another state, they got like $1,400, but it was a $10,000 grant. They got $1,400 out of it. So I personally wouldn't count on the $20,000. I think it'd be a great surprise if you were to get $20,000, but there's an awful lot of demand for this already. When the department says there's a lot of demand, they mean there's a lot of demand. So I would expect checks, in that $1,000 to $5,000 range is what I would expect personally. But you may see those $20,000 checks. They did start their webinar with a lot of people are expecting to see the $20,000 checks. I just don't think there's going to be enough to go around.
Is there a dominant qualifier for this? I remembered with EIDL, the amount of grant dollars that you received was directly related to the number of employees that you had. So if you had one employee, you would only get $1,000 EIDL grant, but if you had 10 or more, you would get the whole 10,000. And that was pretty precise. Is this grant the same way, or is it a little bit more subjective?
Yeah, we don't know what's behind the curtain yet, but the fact that they're asking for 4 pieces of information, the 2019-2020 sales, they want to see how far you're off. They also want to see how big of a player you are, how many employees you've had, how many you've had to lay off. But then they want to know what that PPP amount is that you received and the EIDL that you received. So they want that data so that they can evaluate more than likely the size of grant that you're going to get. I don't think it's going to be completely split up among everybody. I think if somebody does $4 million and somebody does $500,000 in a year, the person that does $4 million, I think is going to get a disproportionate amount of the grant compared to someone that does $500,000 a year.
All right.
And I think they'll use 2019 data. I don't think they'll use 2020 data, as one of my clients said. If they look at 20 data, I'm sunk because my sales are up 90% in some cases.
Yeah. Lisa, are there any more questions from the chat?
There are no more questions, but we do want to thank US Bank for sponsoring us today.
All right, Rick, any final thoughts?
I think the thing I want to leave everybody with is make sure you apply for anything and everything that comes your way. Don't give up and think, well, it's already gone or something like that. You may get a piece of a lot of different things. So keep your eye out. It's really hard to keep up. Stay in contact with the association. They're really good at pushing the information out. So make sure you're paying attention to your inbox and staying in contact with your local reps so that you can get this grant money as it flows, because there will be more of it in 2021. We don't know how much and how swiftly. Some estimate that we'll see new programs by the end of January, others by the end of Q1. All depends on this latest round of PPP that's being discussed and stimulus that's being discussed in Congress right now. But there will be more money by the end of Q1. So we have to get to summer. I've said we have to get to spring, and then we have a shutdown that we're dealing with now. We've got to get to summer. Summer's gonna be the big turnaround here. So hang tight, do what you can to survive and get to summer to where you'll begin to thrive again.
Great.
Can you send us the slides for this, please, Rick?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Rick, for your time. And for those of you watching, again, the deadline for this is December 11th. So you'll need to get your application in at that time, at the very latest. So we will have links on the show notes for this in YouTube and the other place where we're posting this, as we will also have a link to the PowerPoint presentation used today. With that, thank you all for your time. And thank you, Rick, for your time and sharing. This has been very generous and has been very helpful for our members. And with that, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great day.